Senator Isaacson has just talked about the fact that a year ago tomorrow, the President of the United States said that we were in for a summer of recovery. Unfortunately, it wasn't a summer of recovery. In fact, it wasn't a fall, winter, spring of recovery. And here we are a year later with unemployment at 9.1% instead of the 6.7% that the President talked about a year ago. His economic advisors told us that the recovery was going to lead to millions of new jobs. In fact, what it's led to is 6.5 million fewer jobs than they projected, and a continued weak economy. Senator Isaacson just talked about the housing market. Unfortunately, the same is true if you look at the cost of gasoline. It's gone up $1 since the so-called summer of recovery. If you look at what's happening in our economy, it's private investment drying up, leading to fewer jobs, not more jobs. There is an alternative to this. And the Republicans in the Senate have laid out a very specific alternative, a jobs plan to get the economy back on track. It actually starts by dealing with our fiscal crisis, because unless we deal with our record deficits and debts and the $1.3 trillion that's been added to the deficit since the summer of recovery, it's like a wet blanket over the economy. It's very difficult to have the certainty and predictability that the private sector is looking for to create jobs. But in addition to getting our fiscal house in order, we need regulatory relief. Senator Isaacson just talked about that. I would add what the EPA is doing to manufacturers all over the state of Ohio. I'll be in Cleveland, Ohio again tomorrow and the next day talking to businesses, and they will once again, as they did last week, talk to me about their deep concern about some of the new EPA regulations and its impact on jobs and the recovery we all hope for. It has to include tax reform, which is one of our 7 core areas in our jobs plan. We know that tax relief, that smart tax relief, will increase economic activity and therefore growth. It has to include workforce development, being sure that our workers are able to compete on a level playing field with any worker around the world. That requires the federal government to be much smarter in the way in which we use our federal retraining dollars to connect workers to jobs. It has to include energy security to get us away from our dangerous dependence on foreign oil. $4 gasoline is one of the reasons we haven't seen this economic recovery. It has to include getting the costs of health care down. For every family in America and every small business in America, the costs of health care are going up, not down. As a result of the President's legislation last year, in fact, we see in Ohio increased costs, not decreased costs. Expanding exports is another thing in our jobs plan because we know that exports will create jobs. The Obama administration agrees with this. They say that the 3 export opening agreements that are currently negotiated and waiting for the President to send to Congress will create 250,000 jobs alone. Others say more. The fact is, this is a way to give the economy a shot in the arm immediately. And again, finally, getting back to the importance of the budget deficit and the debt, we're not going to see the recovery unless we get our fiscal house in order. We're also not going to be able to deal with these historic debts and deficits and the deep fiscal hole we've been pushed into, in part because of the so-called stimulus package, unless we have economic growth. So we are pushing hard for our jobs plan. We hope that the President and Democrats, that both houses of Congress will move forward on a pro-jobs agenda. It's needed badly.